Abortion, as horrific as it is a surface manifestation of a much deeper problem of our society, and it is relationships between men and women. When I was preparing for this video, I spent many hours listening to people on both sides of the argument. And I found myself crying and crying and crying. And I couldn't figure out what was that was making me so emotional. What was that was so painful? And we'll talk about this later because I think I figured it out. I'm not religious and I'm not a feminist, at least at its current definition, which is more of a radical feminism where women believe that our society is best characterized as an oppressive patriarchy, right? I don't believe that, and I think this kind of belief yields negative results for both sexes. I live in Austin, Texas now, and last Friday, June 24th, a Supreme Court ruling occurred in favor of anti-abortion law. And there was a big deal here. I spent hours trying to dive in as deep as I possibly could that day to understand the complexity of this issue. So what does this anti-abortion law mean for Texas now? That means that women are not going to be able to get abortions in the state of Texas, except for when the mother is in the immediate danger of death. So this particular podcast from Michaela Peterson, who had 2 women on the podcast with opposing views, stood out for me. When I was listening to a woman who is anti-abortion and pro-life, I agreed with her every single argument. Her argument was not rooted in the religious beliefs at all. And then I listened to the woman who was pro-abortion, and I couldn't disagree with her either. I totally understood and agreed with her as well. So let's talk about facts now. What is abortion? Abortion is a termination of a pregnancy. Biology is clear on when human life begins. It does not begin when the baby comes out of the womb. It begins at the minute of the fertilization. Human heart, baby's heart, fetus heart, starts to beat around week 5 and 6. That's a month and a half, around a month and a half. A lot of women don't even know that they're pregnant by then. Abortions are usually performed in the first trimester of the pregnancy, usually by the week 12. By week 10, the fetus or the baby has already legs, arms, and a face form. You can see it right here. Not only a heartbeat. Heartbeat starts at week 5, 6. This is week 10. You can see, right? It's a little tiny human. You have videos, what happens during abortion, right? How those metal things go in and basically rip the limbs apart, right? And kill the baby. Or you have pills, right? There are 2 pills. The first pill is designed to block nutrients for the baby to absorb, so it starves the baby. And the second pill designed to prompt the miscarriage, so to get the dead fetus out of your body. There's nothing good about abortion. Abortion is ending someone's life. So when people say murderers, calling pro-abortion people that word, well, they're not wrong, really, because what is murder? Murder is when someone deliberately ending someone else's life. That's what abortion is. Now, we are very good at lying to ourselves. Oh, it's just nothing there. It's nothing, just a little thing. But the biology and reality tells you otherwise. What happens here, really, is that a mother doesn't have the attachment to that child yet, right? It's not formed yet. You haven't really seen it. You haven't touched it. You haven't smelled it. You haven't given a name to it yet. So therefore, it's easier to say goodbye to it. It's easier to kill it. And it's easier to say it's nothing there, right? I compare it to the situation in Russia right now, where Russian people clearly understand that it is wrong to invade a country and kill innocent people. They know it. But they decide to believe Russians' propaganda and thinking, no, there are Nazis and we're doing a good thing. So it's a protection mechanism that people come up with to not feel bad about what you're doing. It's much harder to kill a newborn because it's in front of you, because you've suffered throughout 9 months carrying that baby. You have an attachment to it, than to kill a fetus that you haven't yet met. However, again, the heart is beating already at the week 5, 6. You probably don't even know that you're pregnant by then. So I just want us to be honest with ourselves. Abortion is ending someone's life, and not just someone's, your own baby. Now, it's hard to comprehend, right? That's why we come up with all these things. Oh, it's nothing. You know, if it's up to 12 weeks, it's okay, right? Up to 12 weeks, you saw on the picture, there is a body with legs, face, and arms. Heart has started beating at the week 5, 6, but it's so hard to take responsibility for it, to comprehend your action, that it's just better to bypass the seriousness of this act. However, does this mean that abortions must be illegal? So let's now look at that side of the argument. My mother had 3 abortions before me. My grandmother had abortions, and those women had abortions in Soviet Union where abortions were illegal. My family, even though it was Soviet Union, they had money. So women with money could afford to find a doctor in secrecy who would perform abortions somewhere in a basement, and women would still die from like dirty knives and things like that. But there were women who were less educated, who had less money, who did crazy things. A hanger, an abortion symbol, is not accidental, right? Women in the past would put hangers, metal hangers in there. It makes me feel sick when I think about it, you know, to get rid of the baby. That's how desperate they were, right? Because what it meant for those women was that your life is over. You know, you will be completely ostracized from the society. You would be called a whore. And that baby who was going to come into the world would be brought to the reality of perpetuate suffering. Now, the question is, what's better? To kill that baby so it doesn't suffer, or to bring this into the world and destroy my life as a woman during that time, right? So we have some statistics here. Abortion ban does diminish the amounts of abortions, but what it really does, it stops women, poor women, getting abortions. Women with money will always find ways to travel to have abortions, while poor women will not be able to do that. And this is what it yields. So I'm going to give you a few examples that happened not that long ago, where women were desperate and wanted to get rid of the baby, but couldn't because where they were, abortions are illegal. So this particular case happened recently last year in Poland with Polish women, where you cannot have abortions right now. She asked her boyfriend to punch her hard in the stomach to kill the baby, you know? So by the time they found her the doctor to get the baby out of her womb, the doctor was astonished because he said he was talking to representatives who were organizing abortions for women who don't have access to abortions. The doctor was complaining to them, I think this woman was beaten. Her entire stomach has bruises on it. No, this is what women do. They beat themselves up, or they ask someone to punch there in the stomach so the baby can die. Another woman, a mother of 4, was trying to figure out how can she crash her car to kill a baby in her stomach, but so she can remain alive for her other 4 children. Women have drank poison over the centuries to get rid of the baby because they were desperate and feared for their own lives. Women put all kinds of objects inside of their vaginas, inside of their wombs, to kill the baby. I started having sex very young, at the age of 15. I had a boyfriend. We were together for 4 years. We started dating when we were 14. We started having sex when we were 15, and we didn't tell our parents. We were hiding it because it was a shame. But sex, you can't stop having sex, right? Sex is irresistible. So what I did, I remember after every sexual act, and this was north of Russia, cold, after we would have sex, I would have to like go secretly into the bathroom, not to wake the parents. Yes, and by then, okay, my mother was not living with my dad now. See, I didn't have a father in the house. My father wasn't around, and that's what happens. Teenage pregnancies occur when fathers aren't around. So I was spending nights at his apartment, but I was still embarrassed in front of his mother, and I would quietly go into the bathroom. I would grab a lemon and I would squeeze the entire lemon into my vagina, because we didn't have internet or anything like that. So with this belief that if you squeeze the entire lemon in there, you will not get pregnant, right? So, and I've done that for years. For like 2 years, until my mother found out and she forced me to go and put the UVI, right? Which is also not desirable at the age of 17. Also, when I didn't have my period to come on time, I was freaking out. I was praying to God not to get pregnant, and I was lifting something really heavy. That's another thing. Lift something heavy so you have a miscarriage or something. So I was doing all of those things without thinking too much of it, right? You're 15. You're not developed, you don't know much. So therefore, maybe it's too early to have sex when you're 15, but like I said, when you have done a father in the house, women are agreeable beings. Fathers need to be there to provide structure and to put boundaries in its place. Another woman recently took 4 packs of birth control and washed it down with a bottle of vodka, hoping to kill her fetus, right? Women will do all kinds of dangerous things in the moment of desperation. So during that podcast, Michaela asked the same question, both women. She asked, what's the strongest argument against your point of view? So the woman who is anti-abortion, she said, the rights, human rights, female rights, and the not wanting government to tell you what to do. And the other woman who is pro-abortion, she said, babies, life. And you know what stood out for me? That men weren't even mentioned or almost mentioned in those discussions, as though they're not active participants as to why we are here. Why are you pregnant in the first place? So my fellow coach had a poll just yesterday. He asked women on Instagram 3 questions. The first question is, has a man ever ejaculated inside you when you didn't want him to? 75% said yes. Second question, have you ever told a man not to ejaculate inside of you, but he did it anyways? 48% said yes. And the third question is, have you ever felt pressured by a man to have sex with him without a condom? 75% said yes. So the reason I was crying so hard during those videos was the sorrow and the suffering of women throughout history. And it's especially vivid in my culture. In almost every book, there is a story of a woman who was seduced by a man, and the man was gone, living his life, and the woman was either dead, pregnant, ostracized from the society. That child was called a bastard and basically, doomed during those times. So I was crying because of that collective suffering. And, I'm an advocate for men, but this is one thing that I think many men, not all, but many men fail women. And it is to take a responsibility. So abortion, as horrific as it is a surface manifestation of a much deeper problem of our society, and it is relationships between men and women. And it is also a relationship to your pleasures, to your impulses. How important is to us to get my fix right now, whether it's sex, whether it's food, whether it's alcohol, whatever that is that makes you feel at ease or pleasure in that moment. By the way, there are studies that show that success in life determined by your relationship with pleasure. If you can prolong that period and stay uncomfortable and rather focus on something else that's productive and not just satisfying your needs, you will be happier in the end and you will produce more for this society. Also, an important statistic I forgot to mention. So a common argument on the side of pro-abortion, we hear, well, what about rape and incest? Statistics are out there. You can find same statistics through different studies. Less in different countries. Less than 1% of abortions are done because of incest and rape. Less than 1%. Around 60% of all abortions are done for women who already had one child. And the majority of them are single mothers. Vast majority of them are single mothers. Okay, so which brings us to the issue I was talking before that. Where are the fathers? Why the fathers aren't present? Why men are not taking responsibility for their actions? And then I was talking to my friend about this issue, and she said to me, we talk about different issues, and while we get emotional, I've never heard you speak this way. I've never felt you had so much pain. It was so charged. Why is that? She asked. And I thought about it. And this is what came to my mind. My mother wanted to abort me. Talking about consciousness. Is there consciousness in the fetus? My mother told me this story. She already had 3 abortions before me, and she was going to abort me. Her father killed himself. My mother felt guilty for her father's death. And she saw a dream where she was in the room full of icons, like Russia has icons in their churches. And her father, dead father, came in, and the whole room was lit up in light and love. And the father said to her, to my mom, do not abort this child. You have to have this child. So I don't know if it has anything to do with that. There's so many things that we don't know. I believe there's consciousness at the moment of conception, personally. This is how I feel. Was I feeling the whole burden and huge cross, collective cross on the shoulders of women throughout centuries? Sure, we're talking spirituality right now. But once again, as horrible as abortion is, this is a much bigger issue. It is our relationship between men and women, the sexuality, a relationship between our impulses and pleasure, morals. And this is what this channel is about, really. We have many years ahead of us to explore and try to find best solutions. How can we not just coexist together, but how can we thrive together? Please support this channel by subscribing and liking it, sharing with anyone who would be interested in the topic, and I will see you in my next video. Thank you for watching until the end.